Earlier today, the Alfa Romeo team launched the C43, and along with it came some major design departures from that of its predecessor, and with those changes, the team hopes to be able to make a significant step forward in the Constructors' Championship. Now, I have to give major props to the team as they are the first team to actually give us a look at a 23 car, unlike that of what both Williams Racing and the Monogram Haas F1 team did with their glorified PR launches of their liveries. Now, with this launch, the team will be hoping this car is much more an all-rounder than that of this predecessor, the C42. And in particular, Valtteri Bottas had this to state about the new car. I feel like this car is, at least from the numbers in the simulator, a bit more of an all-rounder versus being just quick on the slow speed tracks. One big limitation last year was high speed, just pure high speed load and balance, and in theory that should be much better, so let's wait and see. If you cast your mind back to the beginning of the 2022 F1 season, the C42 was very much at the sharp end of the grid, with it in the hands of Valtteri Bottas, while in the race it did suffer from an excess of overheating and graining of the tyres. But one thing that became quite apparent early on was the lack of ability that the team had in terms of further developing its initial design. And so with the C43, they've made major changes to the car with the aim of being able to develop much further into the season. So, with that being said, what exactly are these major changes that they've made? And whereabouts on the car are they? Significant attention has been paid to the rear end of the C43, featuring substantial changes through the likes of a redesigned gearbox, rear suspension geometry layout, as well as internal cooling with the new side-pod designs that they've taken from the likes of Red Bull and Alpine. With these changes all being made and implemented to address the weaknesses that were apparent from last year's Challenger. With regards to the rear end, the Alfa Romeo technical director had this to say of it. The rear end is certainly where we spent most effort, most time to make up ground for us in terms of topology of the rear and opening the door for further development. But these aren't the only changes towards the rear end that have been made, and there are some real interesting designs that may or may not make its way onto the final car when it comes to the first Grand Prix of the 23 season. Now, what am I talking about? Well, that would happen to be these really interesting design features that are around the floor of the C43. As you can see, this quite a design with these staggered sort of slots that form the major part of the floor, and then we've got like this kind of tire squirt which used to be a lot further back to direct airflow in a particular array around the tires. Now, as I mentioned this, a lot of the more technically advanced people in terms of the Formula One world don't particularly think this is going to be within the rules of regulation. So this may be something that will not be on the final car in pre-season testing, let alone at the first race. But having said all that, something interesting was picked up during the actual live stream earlier today with regards to the floor. So, while Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu were unveiling the C43, eagle-eyed viewers did spot something around the floor, and if we zoom in particular to the back end of the floor, you will see on reflection on the shadows on the floor, there is in fact those slots that were in the render. So this to me seems like they're actually going to push ahead with these slots in the floor, and there may be some sort of controversy around it with regards to whether it is legal or not to be run for the 23 season. Even more hidden gems can be found on the C43, in particular with the renders. And this one is to do with a secret little aero fin which is hidden on one particular shot during the live demo from earlier today. Now, if you paid attention, you will have noticed this little ringlet which is hidden behind the front ring and just before the start of the floor. Once again proving the fact that the Alfa Romeo team are leaving no stone unturned with regards to performance when it comes to this year's Challenger. So the question is, what can we expect out of the team with all these substantial changes having been made over the winter break? Well, I personally think they're going to be there or thereabouts with regards to maybe McLaren in chasing a top 5 position. I really cannot see them making a significant jump, at least within the first half of the year. Maybe if we're thinking longer term, but how the cost cap is going to affect other teams as well as them. But more importantly, I would say it's all about how much wind tunnel and CFD time they've been allotted because of where they finished, and that's going to give them an advantage over the rest of their competitors ahead of them. So what they're going to be able to do is have many more simulations put into the wind tunnel, and in particular against the teams ahead of them, in which that case it should give them a bit of an advantage over the course of the season with regards to them actually closing down the gap towards the front. Now that won't be the likes of Red Bull, Ferrari and Mercedes I'm talking about, but I think the likes of Alpine, Aston Martin, McLaren may potentially be on their radar if they do a good job during pre-season testing and they've made the right choices in terms of the development paths that they will be able to take throughout the course of the season, where they don't actually fall back into the routine of which they had to stop developing their C42 last year pretty early on because of the development route they took initially led them down a path of kind of no return. Right guys, well that is the video. I hope you've all enjoyed it. If you have, leave this video a like and subscribe if you're new around here for more Formula 1 content. Alright guys, I'll catch you all in another F1 video.